Hey, people. All right, so let's have a discussion. All right, let's stop that one. Let's have a discussion. What I want to discuss today is, yeah, we're going to discuss home ownership, right? Uh, Video's coming in a little dark here. There it
And that's
go.
going to be everywhere, but
Oh, hold on.
it is very dependent on your price
Let
point
me
as
stop
to
that.
how much opportunity.
All right, so we're going to talk about a topic. I go through looking at some of my fellow realtors in this business, and they do different videos. I do different videos, and I like to share the information with everybody. Sometimes I don't want to reduplicate an actual video.
That's where what's about the
All right, sorry about that. I'm trying to get comfortable here. Um, it's a hot day. It's a scorcher today, so I just came in from being out and working, and I just wanted to discuss this. I thought this video that I looked at from Miss Shanita Hill was pretty good. So I wanted to kind of like piggyback off of it, um, share this discussion with you. So this discussion, the gentleman on this side is a home inspector. All right. And there's a reason why I recommend home inspections. And we went through a period of time in our market where they were trying not to have you do a home inspection. Coming up dark. It's weird because the sun is like right behind me. So just wanted to have a little discussion, let you hear a little bit of this conversation. And I'm gonna chime in every now and then, right? I'm gonna tell you from the very beginning. Home inspections are important for any time you purchase any real estate, whether it be new construction or it be retail, or it be a home that's 2 years old. It doesn't matter. This is important. So let's listen to this conversation. She asked some valid questions. He asked some excellent answers.
the advice you have for first time home buyers to avoid buying a money pit, something that
All right, now this is important, right? Because the way this process kind of works with realtors, we don't know anything about the house. We can only read what you are reading as far as the sales disclosure. It's not a true way all the time to confirm if what the seller is saying is true. So the only way that you really can confirm that is to have an independent person. He has no objection but to evaluate the house um, to see if those things are actually lining up. So let's continue to hit play.
that's going to cost them money soon after they come in with repairs and that sort of thing.
The first thing that I tell people, something I tell people all the time, is 70% of my job is literally just that I walk up to the house looking at it differently than you do. You walk up to the house and you're looking for pretty things, and you walk into the house and you're looking for where your furniture is going to go. Will your TV fit up on that wall? How you're going to be living in there. And a big part of inspections is I walk up to the house looking for problems. And if you can turn that part of your brain off that's excited during the home buying process and turn on the part of your brain that's like, what are the problems here? So much of it is extremely obvious. When you're walking up to the house, if that house is sitting back down below a hill, well, water runs back towards the house. That's something to think about. If you walk up and you're seeing a bunch of damaged wood outside around the fascia and the soffit, if you're seeing a bunch of damaged wood around your windows, well, then you may have a moisture intrusion issue. You may have some damaged wood that needs repaired. If you go up to the house and the gutters are hanging off of the side, well, how did those gutters get pulled down and what caused that? Thinking about those types of things is really important because that stuff all adds up. The thing about a house is on the cheap end, everything that goes wrong in a house will cost you about $1,000. So you must always think about if something goes wrong there, that's $1,000. And I know you think, oh, it's only going to be a few hundred. No, after labor and all this, and they got to do it again, and this has to be $1,000 every time. You have to think that way and understand that those things are now your responsibility, and how much of this responsibility do you want to take on? So walk into the house looking at it with the eyes of where are issues and how many of these am I counting up as I'm walking around this house?
All right, I'm gonna jump back in here and piggyback off of what he said. Now, when we go touring as an agent, what I'm doing for you is similar to what he's doing. I'm looking at the nice aesthetics, yes, but I'm also looking for problems maybe up front. And I'll point those problems out for the most part, okay? But I'm not a home inspector. So my eye is there, and my eye is there because I've been a homeowner for quite some time. And I know what those problems, the ones that I've witnessed and experienced, I know what those problems are and what it costs. So I do understand exactly what he's saying, and I'm recommending everything that he's saying. So let's get finished.
For the inspection, but if you walk into that house and you're seeing a bunch of stuff going on that doesn't look right, it might not be worth even going through the contract on that one because you end up wasting time and money.
Okay, so let's talk about turning off the excitement and turning on the are there any problems brain. So the excitement typically is, oh, look at these countertops. Look at this. Look at this view. Look at this. They painted the door yellow. It's so pretty. Like, we need to turn off all like nice light fixtures and white cabinets and blah blah blah. We need to turn that off, right? And then turn on, oh, the roof looks like it's about 20 years old. Like,
All right, so I want to jump in there because I just experienced that going through the process with one of my buyers. All right, so all those things that she said that's the things that you can do. I mean, you can change the light fixtures, you can change the floors, you can change the counters, you can paint the countertops, you can paint the cabinets, you can do all that to change it and make it like your own. But the important things is like that roof, the foundation, the pipes, right? If you have butylene pipes and you have old cast iron pipes, they cost. So the roof, I just experienced that. I toured the house, I looked it up. It said in the sales disclosure that they didn't know that when the last time the roof was resurfaced or put on. Okay, so I did a little investigating up front, and I told my client that in my research, what I discovered was when that buyer, when he was the buyer, the seller, when the seller was the buyer, he had purchased that house in 2004, and today is about 24 years old, that roof was to the end of life. So my buyer wanted to write a contract knowing that the roof was potentially a problem. So we reduced the price based on what it would cost for a roof. And I said in the contract that if something comes up with the roof during the home inspection, that the seller will be willing to resolve the issue. And right away it came back, oh no, it's nothing wrong with the roof, da 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 da. So I asked the question to my buyer, are you willing to pass on this deal? They said yes. That, in my opinion, is what a good, excellent realtor should do, okay? We should be proactive. I wanted to see, before we even got under contract, if that seller was willing to work through the process and the deal, and they wasn't, so we passed on it.
Exactly.
the water heater was, hasn't been replaced since 2000, okay? So turn on that part of your brain, look at it more critically, because sometimes he's correct. Even with new construction and even with, resales and new construction, you're too excited. Like, look at it with a more critical eye. Like, I usually.
Okay, so when I take a client on a tour, what I'm doing is I'm looking at the AC unit, I'm looking at the roof, I'm looking at the hot water heater, I'm looking at the pipes, I'm looking at the stuff that's going to cost a considerable amount of money. I'm even pretty good with the foundation. So in general, like if you have a poured concrete foundation and it has major crack going through it, you can see to the outside. I know how that's fixed. I know the cost because I've had to do it with sellers. And then I know the difference between the poured concrete foundation and a center block poured foundation, and how that crack is actually handled in the center block portion of the setup. And you know, roofs, I know how much they cost because you know we had to replace a few roofs on houses. Um, Pipes, even in some neighborhoods, the pipes running from the house to the street is a process with that too. It could be the old galvanized pipes and they bust, and that's not covered under homeowners insurance or anything. And it can be covered through paying a special fee every month through your utility company. That if that happens, the utility company will replace it without charging you a crazy amount of money. So let's listen to this other part right here.
Definitely. The big ticket items, HVAC, your roof, and structural issues. That's a whole different ball game unto itself. But typically, coming in and go and check out the HVAC. If it's winter time, what I'm saying, turn the heat up a couple degrees and just see what's going on in all the rooms that it's supposed to be servicing. Is it coming out warm? Is it working properly? You know, go to the sinks and just hit the hot water and see if you get hot water coming out of the tap real quick. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with that. You're not tearing up nobody's house. Just see if you get a little bit of hot water coming out of the tap at every tap. Just making sure that things are working properly. It's very simple things that you can do that you're going to do every single day. That you can walk in and just check out the house a little bit for yourself before you start really moving forward. And it helps with the process, so that you don't get yourself, because the other thing is it can be very tiring getting excited and then having an inspection, being disappointed, and then getting excited again and having an inspection and being disappointed. It helps if you can help the inspector out by finding something that he's not going to have to absolutely tear apart and come in and tell you, I'm so sorry, this house has a lot of problems.
Paying for those.
All right, so that is something that I do when we're going to look, especially if you say you really like this house. And I'll say, like clients will say, can I turn this on? No, you can. Like you're not only looking at if you like the way the house looks, you're looking for those problems too. So I'll say, turn it on, turn the heat. We'll just make sure we turn that stuff off and leave it the way it was like when we came. But you want to check all that. I have a keen eye to look at the AC unit and look and see the date. You can sometimes see the date on the hot water heater also. Sometimes in certain situations, like if the AC unit is being serviced, it'll have a service record right on the unit, right? So you can look and say, oh, it got serviced last this date, even though that's on the sales disclosure. But you can actually physically say, oh, yeah, it says it on the sales disclosure, but here's where the company actually serviced it. So these things are important. So as we're going through this process, don't be shy. Don't look at it like, oh, I'm gonna break something. No, we're looking and seeing if we really want to put an offer on that house. So let's listen to the rest of this here.
Those inspections over and over. How many inspections have you ever done for one client on different homes?
I got up to about 5. I did 5 for one young lady before I literally just stopped her, because she called me and she said, what do I need to do? And I made a list out for her because of the type of housing she was looking for, her price range. I made a list for her of what she needs to be looking at when she goes to these homes. And we were finally able to get her into one. I did about 5. I know my brother had a client where he did almost 9.
Because they're, like you said, there's.
All right, I'm gonna say this. For me, myself, my team, we're gonna try to educate you enough so we won't have to do that. But sometimes getting an inspection and the deal falling apart could be the best thing ever for your life, because getting a money pit, oh, that's gonna be a nightmare. It's gonna cost you a lot of money. So you don't want to, we want to try to avoid that at all costs. And I think it's quintessential to always get a home inspection. All right, so this next question, I always recommend to get a home inspection for new construction. The reason why I recommend it is I know the process of construction, and I know how during construction mistakes can happen, things can shift, because the process is to try to get the product done within a certain amount of time. So their focus may be on that, and they may miss like nailing in the nails in the roof and the shingles. So this could be missed, or it could be done incorrectly, or maybe the pipes aren't all the way locked in. It could be anything. So let's listen to how they answer this question.
Should I get a personal home inspection on new construction? And you're gonna be surprised. We're gonna tell you to get three home inspections. on new construction. Go ahead.
Yes, you should definitely get your own personal home inspector for a new construction. New construction can have issues just like any other home. Just because it was built new doesn't mean that it was done properly all the time. I know that can be scary to hear. But a lot of times, sometimes even if the house was done well, it helps to have an inspection done. One, to help you locate a lot of the things in the house that sometimes you won't always know are there. And also to catch some of those small things that it helps so that you don't have to bicker back and forth with the project manager about getting small things fixed before you move in. It's very good to have a home inspection done, even in new construction, because not all companies are created equal. There are companies out there and builders out there who are doing phenomenal work, and there are builders out there who are operating a bit differently, and they use materials and cheaper labor that creates a house that's going to have some issues down the line. Good builders will typically build a home where they are thinking 5, 10, 15 years down the line, what's this house going to do? Some of the other builders aren't thinking that way, and you can tell immediately in the way that the development was set up and in the way that the houses are sitting. A lot of different things that go on with the way that the house is built. It's not built to last the test of time, and you're going to have problems. In certain instances.
All right, so what he just got finished saying is 100% true. 100. Some builders, few years after the house is built, starts to fall apart, unfortunately, right? Now, as you're going through that process, you're going to hear me say you want to do your research, right? Your research. I could tell you, but that could be more of an opinion, right? Because I haven't built a house by every single one of those builders, but you want to do your research. You'll be able to do your research online. You'll be able to look at the home warranty that comes with the home and everything, but you want to do your research. All right, I want you to hear this next part because I talk about it. When you go on the builder site, sometimes it'll show you the materials that they're using. So you can do a comparison from one builder to another builder, and not all builders are equal. So listen to this coming out the home inspector's mouth, person that inspects these homes and sees these issues. So listen to this, because I talk about it, even talk about the labor part. So let's hear it.
To catch some of those small things that it helps so that you don't have to bicker back and forth with the project manager about getting small things fixed before you move in. It's very good to have a home inspection done, even in new construction, because not all companies are created equal. There are companies out there and builders out there who are doing phenomenal work, and there are builders out there who are operating a bit differently, and they use materials and cheaper labor that creates a house that's going to have some issues down the line. Good builders will typically build a home where they are thinking 5, 10, 15 years down the line, what's this house going to do? Some of the other builders aren't thinking that way, and you can tell immediately in the way that the development was set up and in the way that the houses are sitting. A lot of different things that go on with the way that the house is built. It's not built to last the test of time, and you're going to have problems. In certain instances immediately, and in other instances, within 4 or 5 years, you start having issues. And builders have their warranties and everything. But a warranty is literally just expect a problem and we'll come back and deal with it. Well, a house that's brand new, you should go a good decade before you really have to do any major things in that home. And you know, if you have to start calling on that warranty within the first year or two, that's a problem. You shouldn't have that because, you know, in everyone's mind, and this is hard to get rid of, new construction is a dream. You know what I'm saying? This is my dream home. I'm having a house built from scratch. But, you know, once problems start to arise, it's a nightmare. And so you want to definitely try your best to avoid that, and having an inspector come out and check as much of it out as he possibly can, he or she possibly can, then it really helps.
Okay, let's talk about those 3 inspections that they can get on new construction. What's the first one?
Well, you can get the first one, the first overall encompassing inspection that you can have done is what's called a phase inspection. That will encompass everything. So phase inspections is where the inspector will come out, you know, basically at the groundbreaking. And they're going to be checking as the electrical lines go in, the plumbing lines go in. They're going to be checking as the concrete is poured, all the way through the process, pre-drywall and final inspection. The more typical way of things going, because, you know, a lot of builders do not like phase inspections. They don't want, because they're already having code inspections done so much that they don't want anything else going in the process. So phase inspections are hard to get done. You really have to push for those. But the more typical is typically we'll do a pre-drywall. That is where, you know, all of the framing is up, the roof is on, the house is typically wrapped, windows and doors are installed, all of the plumbing is installed, electrical, HVAC, all that stuff is installed, it's rough installed. And then we'll come in and we'll check everything before the drywall, the walls go up and all that stuff gets sealed up so that we can see what's going on, how have they installed all of that, has it been done properly? And, you know, do any changes need to be made?
All right, so the reason why I say that one is very important, and is because you get to see everything. How is sitting in the house before that drywall goes up. The other thing I always tell everybody is this: as you're going through that process, take pictures, because if something occurs or something needs to be changed, like later on, you have physical pictures so you know where stuff is at. Let me do this. I'm gonna bring up a home inspection company in Delaware that I use a lot, so you get to see on their site. I'll show you typically what kind of home inspections services that you can get done. All right, so as you see here, these are the different home inspections that you can get done, even on a general home. This one, pre-offer inspection, you could possibly do that, but you could run into issues where it's cost you more money because you don't know what offer is going to be accepted. But let's look at this is important. This is a home health checkup for any homeowners, but let's look at this one. The different phases of the home inspection. So as you see, framing, sheathing inspection, right? Then you have the pre-drywall inspection, final walkthrough inspection. They even have an inspection after you've been in the house 11 months. So you can come back and get the house checked out again. Blue tape inspection. All right, this is to address even the smallest imperfections. We conduct a meticulous blue tape inspection. This ensures every cosmetic detail is pristine, identifying flaws that may arise during the construction or later on. All right, you can click more to learn more there. And then each one of these can cost a different different cost. Now, the reason why I recommend it, this is your dream house, right? And you want it to be as close to perfect as possible. All right. So let's get finished listening. Let's jump back over.
And then the final inspection, or to a lot of times we come in and we're just doing a final inspection. So I didn't get to see what they did behind the walls. I didn't get to see how they put this electrical in. I don't know what's going on with this foundation. And so, it can be a bit tough in a new home because, just like anything else, it takes a little while for things to break in. So, we go in and do our very best to what I call stress test the home. We go in and I'm going to be running a lot of water and all the electrical and have all the appliances going and try and see, can the house hold up to this? To try and, see where the house starts to bend or break a little bit. But, there's only so much that we can do. One thing that an inspection is it's a day in the life. It's a day in the life of your house. Tomorrow, this is a different house. Everything is different. And so you have to be aware of it.
All right, so what I want you to do is listen to this story. I got stories. I'm gonna tell you a couple of different stories at the end of this video, but I want you to hear Shaida's story. I've never heard this one before, so it's very interesting.
Everything is different, and so you have to be aware of that.
All right, I want to tell this story so it stays in all of new construction buyers' minds, and you'll be like, get an inspection. So these clients, they did do the pre-drywall and they did the final, but they didn't do that phase one that Jamal was talking about, like when they're pouring before they pour the foundation, they're like putting all the utilities and all that kind of stuff in. So they closed on the house. About 3 months later, they've noticed that water was coming like up from the slab all around the island, up in like the side, just water. Now, mind you, it is under warranty for that first year. Everything's under warranty. So they came in and what they figured out was when they were initially putting the plumbing in, they didn't connect the plumbing appropriately underground, right? So for the laundry room, all the water was coming in like through the slab, behind the walls, like it was just pouring in, okay? So these clients, of course, they call me this 3 months later, and I'm calling lawyers and I'm calling the calling everybody. Okay, so how a warranty works is they are obligated to fix it, but they're not obligated to put you in a hotel. They're not obligated to, give you pain and suffering for the time that you lost because you couldn't work from home like you were going to, right? They are just obligated to fix it. And so they did come in and fix it, but my clients were very inconvenienced during this time. But mind you, they had to go into their landscaping. They had to, go and reroute the water, like the plumbing line. They had to take up all of their flooring. They had to do mold remediation behind the walls. So imagine you going through this in like a month of your house and there's nothing you can do, but then just to allow them to fix the problem. So when we're talking about warranties, you're talking about they're obligated, because I talked about 3 lawyers, right? They're only obligated to they have agreed to fix the problem within that first year and make you whole again. That could take them a month. That could take them, 2 months. But you would have rather, done your inspection, had that happen and know that you're good, like Jamal said, for the next maybe 10 years. And you don't have to go through some of those inconveniences. So I highly recommend, I used to recommend 2. Now I'm recommending that 3rd one because that's the experience that I had because that never happened to me before. But now I know, right? So definitely get your new construction home inspections. I have some other, that was the most major thing that's ever happened to a client. But I've had, other clients close new construction and things happen and they're dragging their feet. You've already closed. Okay. They're not rushing over there to handle business. So just be mindful of that. It's not like your apartment when maintenance is going to come the next day. You're going to put in a ticket and then they're going to come. If it's not what they deem to be an emergency, they'll probably tell you if there's a leak, a little leak, go ahead and turn off the water and we'll come back out in about a week and fix it. You have another bathroom in your house, go ahead and use that. Just don't use that bathroom. That's the kind of thing you're going to go through with warranty issues with new construction. So very good question. I think that answered a lot of the new construction questions that I see.
All right, that's 100% true. That's what they're going to do. They're not going to rush off and respond and just do it right away. All right, so be aware of that. All right, so I would like for you to listen to this next question. Just look at this, and this is very important.
Kiva has a good question. What are your top 3 red flags? Like when you, and I'm going to talk about my first time home buyer guide, because in that I have like sample inspection. So you know what inspection looks like before you buy your first home. But typically on these inspections, they put them in like things that are serious, things that are like not that serious. So what do you feel like are like red flags when you put like the serious, point on it?
The number one most serious thing that you're going to run into, typically, structural issues is probably the biggest red flag. Structural foundation issues cause the most problems, because a structural issue can cause plumbing issues. It can cause roof issues because once the house begins to shift, everything goes along with it. So your structural issues is the number one red flag. And from my experience, typically, because we typically don't deal in deal breakers, structural issues are typically a deal breaker. It's very, very expensive to fix structural issues. So that's typically your number one red flag.
All right, so let me jump in there. Let me tell you a story. So I had a client, actually a relative. We went through the home inspection. We kind of noticed that the walls in the basement were bowing, all right, in 2 areas. All right. I kind of saw it a little bit. He could see it better because he works in that field. So when the inspection happened, the inspector flagged it. That's in a major defect category. And when I went back to tell the seller what we needed fixed, they were all aware of it. These were investors. They were well aware of it. The cost was over $10,000, just to give an idea of like how much something like that may cost. It could cost even more. And what they had to do is dig up the ground on the outside of the foundation. They had to stick a rod through the center blocks for the basement and shore it up. Is a process that they go through. And then they backfill and they waterproof on the outside. And basically what causes the problem is that the water in the ground is pushing on the wall. So if the problem is not addressed, the walls will cave in. And if the walls cave in, the whole house could cave, just to let you guys know. All right, let's get finished.
The second red flag, and it's one that we've really just begun to run into in the last 5 years or so, is roofing issues. Roofing issues have become a much bigger deal over the last 5 years or so because insurance companies are not keen to take on the risk of an older roof. And when I say an older roof, a roof that's 15 years old, a roof that has a 20-year lifespan, but it's 15 years old, they're not always keen to take on that roof. And so you have to be very, very careful and very diligent about knowing the exact age of the roof, because we do an estimation. We estimate the age of the roof because I don't have any of the paperwork telling me. I can typically look at a roof, walk a roof, or run my drone over a roof and get an idea of how old that roof is. But you want to know the exact age of that roof for your insurance. And you want to make sure that your insurance is going to cover that roof. Because, a lot of times they will quote you and then they'll say you're good, but every insurance company has the right after you've closed to do a walk by. And that adjuster walks out there and he sees a roof that he or she doesn't like. They have the right to drop you. And so you have to be very, very careful with older roofs. We make a much bigger deal about older roofs now than we used to. It used to be, if a roof was 15 years old and had a 20-year lifespan, we'd say it needs some patches here or there. Keep an eye on it. Within the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to need to be replaced. We don't get to do that anymore. We have to be very tough on roofs because insurance has become a lot tougher on roofs. So we have to kind of pass that responsibility off to a licensed roofer who can do things that we can't, like pull the roofing up and take a look underneath, look for rusted nails, look for leaks that haven't seeped through, that type of thing. So roofs are definitely the next big red flag. Probably 3A and 3B. HVAC issues are big because HVAC is very expensive. Very, very expensive to have to replace HVAC, and you know, here in Georgia, we typically get all 4 seasons fairly well. So, you know, you're going to want your heat to work. You're going to want your AC to work. So you always want to keep up with, you want to know what are the ages of these. Like I said, if it's wintertime, when you go and look at the house, hit that heater and see if you got hot air coming out, and make sure it's coming out good at all the registers. Same thing in the summertime. Go ahead and knock that thermostat down a couple notches to see what type of cold air you've got coming out of there. We do a more exhaustive check, but that's something you can do right off the top to see, is this thing working the way it's supposed to? And then the other one for people, more often people who want a basement, or you know what I'm saying, or the house has a basement, moisture intrusion is a big thing, because moisture intrusion can cause a lot of different problems. Typically where the house meets that foundation, a lot of times that'll be below ground. And so you'll get where moisture can just find its way in. Water always needs to find its way in. And so, you know, anytime you've got big moisture issues, if you go down into a basement of a home, especially one that's finished, and they got a couple of dehumidifiers going down there full bore, that's a sign that more than likely they've been having moisture issues. And that's something that you really want to ask about and get as much information about as you can, because moisture causes a lot of problems in basements. So those are probably the top 3 big issues: foundation, roof, and HVAC/moisture intrusion.
100%, 100%. And I've noticed that in several houses, and I've pointed that out, that, hey, if you're seeing that many dehumidifiers, could be a issue there. So be aware of that. All right, so this next one is a very important question, and I do the same. I recommend a list of inspectors for the same exact reason Ms. Hill is going to say next. So listen.
To the minor question, I'm going to say this. How do you go about finding your own home inspector? So Jamal is in Atlanta, but he's international.
Don't do me like that.
You can fly him out. But what I typically do, I have a list of inspectors. Like, I never give somebody just one inspector. So if your agent's on the chat, never just get, I love Jamal, but I'm sending a list of people.
All right, she's going to say the reason why, but I send a list, but also at the end of my list, it says you have the right to pick whoever you want, even if it's a person that's not on this list.
With Jamal. Because what happens is your client will say, well, you told me to use Jamal. Jamal misses something. Now I'm at fault because I only suggested Jamal, right? So my inspection list is probably about 6 inspectors that I've done inspections with in the past. Now, Jamal is at the top of that list, so they'll see that one first. However, your agent should give you a list of inspectors so you can kind of look at them, see their reviews, see all that kind of stuff, and see if you want to use them. So that's how typically I would say you would find your inspector, or like YouTube video. I don't know. So how do people normally find you, Jamal?
Most of my business comes in through referral. I've been doing this long enough at this point that I have a lot of different contacts. And so a lot of my business comes in from agents, investors, other clients that I've worked with, and they got a family member who's getting a house and they immediately say, use Jamal. So that's where most of my business is word of mouth for me. And that has always sustained me, as far as if you do a good job for people, they always remember you. But the easiest way, you know, you want to go on, you want to look through reviews. You know, when you go on the Google and you type in inspector, you're going to get somebody typically within your area. You want to look through people's reviews. You want to go to their website and try to see what it is they're offering for the price. You don't always want to go with the cheapest. And I know I say that as we are one of the cheapest, but that's my own.
Yeah, they're affordable.
That is my personal thing. My brother doesn't like it, but that's my personal thing. I don't believe in charging people a lot of money for what it is that we do. But you know what I'm saying? You don't always want to go with somebody who's offering you, you know, a $200 inspection. Well, sometimes you get $200 results. You want to go with somebody who's typically an inspection on a medium-sized house, anywhere between 2,000 and 3,000 square feet, will cost you somewhere around $350 to $400. And it should. That's about how much it should cost you. And you want to find out all of the different things that they offer. You want to find out if they are licensed and insured, and that includes, liability insurance, error and omissions insurance. You want to make sure that they've registered with the state, or if not with the state, with the county, or the city that they're in, business license. And you want to find out if they have been licensed, or you want to get their license, because you are not required to be licensed in some states, Georgia being one of them. There is no requirement to be licensed as an inspector. Really, anyone can technically inspect a home. So you want to be careful about that, and make sure that they are licensed. The two big licensing boards in inspections are InterNACHI and ASHI. InterNACHI is the one my brother and I are a part of. ASHI is another organization that does really good work. There are some others. When we first started, there's online training you can get with a company called AHIT. It doesn't mean that they're a bad inspector. It just means that they didn't have to go and learn everything all at once. It's a good way to get your foot in the door. But after that, you would prefer that they learn a little bit more. But you want to make sure that they have those things. You want to check out their reviews and read through all of them, because sometimes a bad review is just somebody was salty, but sometimes a bad review is saying some things that you really need to understand about how this person goes about their work. And if you start to see a pattern in that, well, then you may have an issue. So you have to do your due diligence as far as finding your own inspector and finding someone that you're comfortable with, someone that you feel like is going to go out there and do a good job. The thing you must always remember with an inspector is that the inspector, even though you are hiring this inspector is not there for you. The inspector is outside of the realm of this business deal. So the inspector is coming in, and the inspector is here for the house. I'm not on the buyer's side. I'm not on the seller's side. I'm not on the bank's side. I'm not on anybody's side. I'm here for the house, and I'm going to simply inspect the home, and I'm going to give out the results. What I like to tell people is I have a conversation with the house, and I come back, I tell everybody what the house said, and that's it. And then I remove myself from the situation, because I'm not really here for anybody. I'm not here to tell you whether or not, no inspector should tell you whether or not you should buy a house. No inspector should, what I'm saying? We have what we call deal breakers in the industry, where they're alarmists. Everything's the biggest deal in the world. Very rarely is anything that big of a deal. Every house has issues.
All right, so let me step in there. So what he's saying is true. And generally you could ask, like in our process, our clients, they'll ask the inspector, like generally, like, do you know how much that may cost? Nothing is a deal breaker unless, the seller is not willing to fix something that falls under these categories: safety or major defect. Major defect is like the foundation is just shot and it needs to be addressed. It could be rectified several different ways. Seller could say, I'm gonna get it fixed and repaired. I'm gonna hire the people that's gonna do it. It could be, we're gonna find out, get 3 quotes, see how much it costs, and then the seller is gonna give you the money in lieu of getting it fixed. So this way you can hire your own person. And then they could do nothing. And then that could be a decision that the buyer has to make, whether they want to move forward or not. All right. But generally the inspection is just to pull out the things that's wrong and show you all the things that's right, basically, with the house. So, and the inspectors that kind of like freak clients out, I pretty much try not to recommend them, because the buying process is a very intense process. All right, so now she's gonna flip it, right? Because it's a major defect and it's some minor things, right? You need to see the difference between the two. So let's dump in.
Major red flag and do minor things, because a lot of times first time home buyers are like crazy about the little things. Like they want perfection on a used house, right? So I'll give you one, like anything cosmetic, like paint issues. Unless it's new construction, but like paint issues, minor carpet or flooring issues, Those are things that people really get honed in on, and it's not that big of a deal. So like I look at first any safety issues typically when I help my clients go through the report, and then I'm looking at any expensive issues, like things that are going to cost them a lot of money. So when they start being like, oh, that light switch is missing the faceplate. And I'm like, come on, you get one of those for $2 at Home Depot. Like, we're not going to ask them to replace the faceplate. Let's focus on the things that are most expensive, that are going to cost you the most money. So what are some other things that you say are minor that people think are major sometimes?
A lot of times, moisture stains will oftentimes be something that people will see in a ceiling or something like that. And they will think, well, is there a leak there? Well, number one, 9 times out of 10, no. If you live in the house for long enough, you're going to cause a moisture stain by either overfilling your tub or overfilling the sink or doing something stupid because you live there and we're human beings. But as an inspector, I'm not only going to document that moisture stain, I'm going to test it to see if it's active. And so if it's inactive, then it just needs to be painted over with what's called bacteria killing paint. What happens is people try to paint over a moisture stain and it bleeds back through. You have to kill the bacteria first, and then you can paint over it and you'll be fine. Moisture stains is something that people see. Again, paint issues here and there. One thing that people have to understand is that 99% of cosmetic issues in a home, an inspector is not even going to mention them because that is outside standard operating procedures. Cosmetic issues can very easily fall underneath personal preference. And that includes cleanliness, unfortunately, unless it's something that's, hazardous, how dirty the house is, little things like that's not really my business because, that's the way they're keeping it. It's just because they painted the walls in some weird color, just because they let their kids crayon all over the walls, that's their personal preference. It's not what we call a material defect. There's not something absolutely wrong with that. They didn't damage the wall. They just made it not look as good as most people would want it to look. So you kind of have to look past that. It takes some vision sometimes to walk into a house that people haven't been taken care of cosmetically and be able to see that, oh, this stuff just needs to be cleaned up and some new paint needs to be put up. And yeah, carpet, typically carpet is something that we will mention in a report. If it has wrinkles and stuff like that, we'll say that it needs to be restretched. If it has stains, we'll say that it needs to be cleaned. The only time we're really going to be mentioning carpet as far as something serious is if it has massive holes and stuff in it that someone could trip over. But other than that, we're really not going to say anything when it comes to like wood flooring and stuff like that. What we're looking for there is damage. And if there's no damage, if it really just needs to be refinished, well, that's something you can do at any time. So, we try to stay away from, small cosmetic issues. In every bathroom, there's always a sink stopper that's not working. There's always some toilet bolt covers that are missing. There's always little things going on around the house that people just don't take care of. And it's typically a really simple fix. And, the thing that a lot of people find out when they move into a house is that they don't want to do that stuff either. Nobody feels like walking around being meticulous and putting everything back in place. This is where you live and you want to be comfortable. And these people who were living here before, they want to be comfortable. And so they weren't taking care of all those little knick-knack things. The real thing you want to see is were they maintaining the home in the places that were important. And as long as they were doing that, the rest is honestly can be a bit trivial. You really want to try to back away, take a wide view of things and see, is this house, are the bones of this house good versus worried about really small things? Because you can get lost in the weeds when it comes to small things. And a lot of times, the more I do this job, the more of those small things I end up leaving off my report because you can blow. I could go and I could bloat every report with a bunch of small stuff here and there if I wanted to. But what you really want is for your client to focus on what's important.
Okay, very good. And I also wanted to say, when you're talking about carpet, a lot of times, and this is just something that happened to me before, that we didn't look under the bed, like, little things like that. So when they moved out and it was time for the walkthrough, there was like a huge thing after. And we're like, oh my goodness, so we had to kind of negotiate that. So like kind of look under things when you talk about those cosmetic It's not that you can't get a credit for it or ask the seller for some kind of credit, because you may have to replace the carpet, you may have to repaint the house. It's just that you may not put that as a higher priority over like your roof or the HVAC.
Exactly.
So if it's a matter of them painting the house versus giving you a new roof, we're focusing on the new roof. And you're not going, one thing that you guys have to realize as first time home buyers, you're not going to get everything that the home inspection lists. You have to kind of prioritize what you're going to ask for and what's most important to you. It's not that they're going to make this home like it was new again. Okay, so just be mindful of that. It's kind of like we talk about used cars. You wouldn't expect to buy a used car and then tell them to put in a new engine and put in a new, have everything new. You're buying it used, and usually you're buying it at like a discount, right? So a lot of times resales aren't as expensive as new construction in that same area because of that. So just be mindful of that. Great question. Let me close that one up.
All right, so everything that she said is everything that I tell clients. The house is not new. The house is used. It's been around for years, whatever the amount of years it's been around. There's gonna be some things that's gonna come up wrong. That's just a part of the nature of the beast. No need to freak out. I'll guide you through the process once we know what's in the report. All right. All right, listen to this next question. This is a very good question. All right, so I'm gonna play it.
All right. Shardana says, how does inspection work for condominiums and lofts?
Those are very different. That is a good question. So for condominiums and lofts, it's pretty straightforward, the same, but it's very different because a lot of the utilities will be in very different areas. And so the inspector a lot of times will have to come in and work with the management company to get access to a lot of the other things. Like a lot of times the AC units will be on the roof. And the roof will be locked up. And so you have to get them to give you key access, and you have to go all over the place. And unfortunately, a lot of times, especially in condos downtown, none of that stuff is labeled. So you get up there and there's about 300 AC units and none of them are labeled, and we don't know which one is yours. And they say, oh, those are supposed to be labeled. I know they're supposed to be. So, you deal with that. A lot of times, some of the older condos downtown will be on a boiler unit, which will be what does all of your heating and cooling. It'll do all of your hot water will come from that. And so, we'll have to go down into the utility area and check out the boiler unit. So you'll be dealing with some things that are a little bit different from single family homes, even townhomes. Things can be a little bit different when it comes to that. But for the most part, it's still straightforward. We're going in, we're checking the space and trying to see if there are any defects inside the space that you're going to be living in.
All right, good question. Are there any time frames? This is a good question. Are there certain time frames?
All right, he didn't go over one thing. He didn't go over this one portion of that home inspection though. With a condo, the exterior of the condo is not owned by you or the owner, right? Rather. So the roof, that's not owned by the homeowner. The exterior bricks on the outside, like when you open up your window, if you go outside, or all that right there, is not owned by the homeowner. That's a part of the HOA. So they'll provide documentation as far as like how old the roof is when the last time the roof was done. They'll provide you documentation with how much money is in the coffers to cover those expenses, and if those expenses is considered upside down, meaning if you have 30 units in there that's in foreclosure, they're not collecting those fees. So in the event that the roof has to be replaced on all units, and they normally do it on all, and if there's not enough money in there, the remaining owners have to fork over a little bit more money to cover the additional costs. Just wanted to throw that in there. Oh, and also with knowing that, you have the right to say that you don't want to buy the house once you get all the details as far as the financials. All right, now this next question is a very good question also. Just want you guys to listen. And then I'll chime in again.
Time frame, this is a good question. Are there certain time frames that homes were built that are typically worse or better? So talk, and I think we're talking about like times when they didn't use lead-based paint or when they didn't use certain things. So is there like a certain age that you're like, okay, if it was built before this time, you may need to be more cautious?
Yes. So if you're buying a house that was built, I believe, before 1968, don't quote me on that, but I believe it's 1968, you may end up with some electrical issues because that's when a new standard of electrical came in. And so homes began to go from what was considered 2-wire to 3-wire. 3-wire is literally, when you look and you've got the 3 little prongs down there, that third prong at the bottom is your ground wire. Well, before that, you didn't need that because, homes were only using, and appliances were only using 2 prongs, which means they didn't need to be grounded. Well, if you go and you yeah.
I was
If
looking
you
around
go
to see if
and
I had
you
one.
get
You don't know what he's talking about. You have that little third one on the bottom. So instead of like
Exactly.
2, you have 3. Yeah.
And so, if you go and you buy a home that was, built before 1968 or so, and, they've gone and they've updated the electrical and put in 3-prong outlets, the question then becomes, did they update the wiring? Because updating to a three-prong outlets and putting a new panel in doesn't necessarily mean that they rewired the house. So you want to be very careful with that, because when you update to a three-prong outlets and update the electrical panel, but you don't change out that old wiring, what you have is an ungrounded system. Now, there are a lot of ways that can be remedied. Some I like, some I don't personally like, but they are all legal as far as NEC code. But you just want to make sure, because when it comes to that, there are a lot of older homes that have some electrical that hasn't been done quite right. That's one thing to think about. Lead paint, lead paint isn't always as big a deal. You want to be more worried about lead plumbing. Lead paint, one of the things that's acceptable as far as fixing lead paint is painting over. So if you have small children, if you have animals, lead paint is something you might want to be worried about as far as the house, and you need to be worried about it as far as, but sometimes the appraisers will make a big deal about lead paint.
Lead paint stopped after 1978.
Yes. So yeah, if your house was built after 1978, you don't have lead paint. But one of the ways to fix lead paint is literally just to paint over it. So sometimes people get scared about lead paint. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's very easily remediated.
Unless you're like literally like your kids are like chipping the paint and putting it in their mouth.
Yes, yes.
Like,
And
right.
that is the other thing. And the way that lead paint affects you is you eat it. So, so it's not the boogeyman that people always make lead paint out to be. It's a pretty easy fix, and as long as you make sure your kids or your animals aren't eating it, you'll typically be fine as far as lead paint is concerned. An era that really seems a little bit more modern, but had a lot of issues. Basically, 80s to early 90s homes typically have some pretty big issues, because during that time, there was a lot of recalls on electrical panels, siding, plumbing, lots of different things that were going on in the 80s and all the way up to the mid 90s that were a little bit funky. One thing, polybutylene plumbing came in I think it was like the late 70s through, and then it got taken out in the mid 90s. Polybutylene plumbing is typically, it got recalled, and then it got
All right, those pipes like that, what typically happens is they burst, they fail, and then you have to replace them all. I had a client that we were aware of those types of pipes in the house, and we informed her that she's gonna have to replace it, and it happened sooner than we could even expect. So you want to be aware of those types of pipes also. Sometimes if it should be told to you in the seller's disclosure, but sometimes homeowners don't even know it.
Class action lawsuit because it has a tendency to burst. So that's one thing that came in during that time. There are some different electrical panels that are still present in homes all across America today. What is it called? Federal Pacific was the company that.
Fighting, right?
No, that's a different one. That's Georgia Pacific and Louisiana Pacific.
Okay.
Yeah, that Federal Pacific one, that electrical panel had a tendency to catch on fire and it burnt houses down, and that's where the lawsuit actually came from. So I'll just give you details about what he's talking about there.
The siding that got recalled.
Okay.
Federal Pacific, it was an electrical company, and they had panels, electrical panels that ended up getting recalled because basically the breakers wouldn't always shut all the way off. And so it would cause fires, and they still cause, I think last I saw the average is like 3,000 fires per year. So if you have one of those in your home, go and just look them up. So you can see what they look like they are. You can tell immediately when you see one, they don't look like other panels.
Now with that, right, to explain for all you guys that don't know what the breaker does. So the breaker, if it's a surge of energy, going back to the electrical panel, it pops and it cuts it off to eliminate a fire. So you guys understand.
It's always a good idea to go ahead and have an electrician replace those. So that's another thing that came in the 80s. Speaking of the siding, wood composite siding was a big thing in the 80s and early 90s. Wood composite siding was basically then just taking a big mash and slurry of wood and then pressing it together really well. And it's supposed to be longer lasting and stronger than just wood itself and cheaper. But it has a tendency to just soak up moisture, just pull it right on in and start to rot away on you. And a lot of that ended up getting recalled until that's how we ended up with Hardy Point, which is a concrete composite. So those are things that were done in the 80s and early 90s. That was an era where homes they thought that they were innovating, but they weren't quite there.
Okay, good. The good question. All right, I know that you're in Atlanta, so maybe you can't do this, but just give them kind of a range on those 3 inspections. Like how much would that inspection cost, the second, the third, and then if I guess they bundled it all together and, hired you for each one of them, give them like a ballpark, I guess, on the average house, maybe like 2,000, 3,000 square feet.
Me personally, on our side.
All right, so before I let him answer that question, that can range depending upon what company you're going to. It can range, and it could be in different markets. It could cost different also. So just wanted you guys to know that.
Things at 3,000 square feet, 2,000, 3,000 square feet, we typically charge about $325, and then pre-drywall is 200, and those phase inspections, depending on how many have to be done, are 150. So typically it'll end up somewhere between $800 and $1,000. For larger inspection companies, you may pay a little bit more. Now, the thing I always tell people, we're an independent small business. So, there are things that we can do and things that we can't. Sometimes it is worth paying that extra money to a larger company because number one, they can give you guarantees because they can afford, they have corporate behind it. They can give you guarantees I can't give you. They can go in and do things because they have a lot more insurance than I can carry. They can go in and do things that I can't do. They can take things apart that I can't take apart. They're oftentimes going to send 2 or 3 inspectors out there. So, it's sometimes worth going with a larger company. All
right, so I'm gonna kind of skip past that part. Also, is another part that was never mentioned about inspections. So let's say you got your inspection done. We sent off the request to have the seller fix stuff. Myself as an agent, if it has to do with the roof, I can't guarantee it was done right by the actual owner. So I recommend what's called a re-inspect. a re-inspect costs us less than a full inspection, but they're just looking for those things that were supposed to have been corrected to make sure they were corrected. I think it was like $125 at one point. Might be a little more, but it's somewhere around there. And that could be again well spent money because you want to make sure the repairs are done correctly. Because a homeowner could actually do it, even though we put in there a licensed contractor. So you never know. Listen to this next question. It's very important because some homes have basements and some homes don't. So let's and this is typical with every home inspection company that I'm aware of in Delaware. You might have one that just charges a flat fee. I don't know. I haven't ran into that yet.
Right, do you charge more? Do most inspectors charge more for basements versus slab homes?
Yes, we charge, we actually had to go up. We charge $50 extra for unfinished basement. It ends up being the same whether it's finished or not, because we charge by the livable space as far as square footage is concerned. So if the space is unfinished in your basement, we charge you $50. Typically, if that space is finished, it ends up running the square footage up to the point where we're going to end up charging you that extra $50 anyway. So, and then we charge $50 for crawl spaces. A slab, we don't charge any extra as far as a slab is concerned.
Okay. Thank you for that question. Don't forget to get my first-time homebuyer guide. Ms. Amin-Ra is moderating. She's putting that in the comments. So make sure you get that guide. It's going to save you money. Because what I made this guide because too many people are emailing me after they close and they're trying to sue their agent. You got to pay for the lawyer, and you're probably going to lose because agents have so many protections in those contracts. Want to do it right the first time, so make sure that you're getting the my first time home buyers guide that specifically made it based on me being on this channel, getting emails, most of them after closing that cost thousands of dollars to try to fix. All right, so make sure you're getting that.
All right, I just let that play. She has a first time. I got a guide myself too. So and I can share that with you guys for our market. All this stuff is very, very important, and don't take it lightly. If you do this correctly, you'll get into a home very safely. All right, so the next topic that's a part of this discussion, it's gonna be the windows. All right, I want you to listen in. I'm gonna do an in-depth video. Like I'm gonna record one of the home inspections when I get an opportunity, or some of it, and then I'm gonna share some of the details. I can't share everything because it's more private. I don't want somebody's information leaking about their particular deal, but I'll figure a way out. But listen to this.
Those, Jamal, should they be concerned? So I know on every inspection you open all windows, open, close, open, close. When should they be concerned about windows?
Windows, there's a lot of different things to be concerned with about windows. As far as, a lot of times you'll get moisture intrusions into windows, and that's something that you should notice. Depending on how the windows were constructed, if you're in an older home and you have, and even, in some of the more upscale neighborhoods, they still require wood windows when they're building. So you'll get wood rot and stuff around windows. Water tends to settle into those areas. Any imperfections in the flashing, any imperfections in your gutters. If you haven't been cleaning out your gutters and stuff like that, and water is running down the face of your home, well, that is going to find its way and seep into your windows. So, windows can be a problem as far as that is concerned. But that's more of a maintenance issue. Windows now are typically made. We don't really do single pane windows anymore. They are dual pane. Even 3-pane windows are being developed now. And they are pumped. There's an argon gas that's pumped into those, and it creates a seal for efficiency of the home. So basically, on a hot day, that heat's not penetrating and coming through that glass. On a cold day, that cold isn't coming through. But oftentimes what'll happen, those windows are given a lifespan like other appliances in your home. They're given a lifespan as well. And typically, depending on the manufacturer, anywhere from 10 to 20 years. And so at those marks, you'll begin to see a lot of people have gone into homes, or you might be in a home right now where you look at that window and there's a bunch of fog sitting in between the window. What that is that seal beginning to fail. Once that seal fails, there is no way to fix that. That seal will continually degrade. Once that seal is gone, you no longer, and typically once it's gone, you'll know. It'll be completely fogged out. You almost can't see through it. You'll have water droplets and stuff in between the pane. Once it fails, you know what I'm saying? That's now basically just a single pane window again. And you've lost the efficiency as far as that's concerned. And the only way to fix that is to replace that window. If you go into a house and you see a bunch of fogged out windows, that can be, if you've got one or two, no big deal. Keep an eye on them. We tell people budget to replace them in the future. But if you go into a house and all of those windows are fogged out, number one, the efficiency of that home has probably been lowered significantly. And replacing all of the windows in a home adds up really, really quickly. In a small house, sometimes it's not that big a deal. It might only cost you, $4,000 or $5,000. But in a larger home, if all of those windows are fogged out, which sometimes people do in ignorance, not understanding how those windows are to be taken care of, they'll do that damage themselves, and that can cost you anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000. Like I said, in some of the upscale neighborhoods, they don't allow you to put vinyl windows in the home. You have to have those wood windows, and wood windows that are sealed like that are very, very expensive. So it can end up costing you a lot of money. One thing about those windows that you'll notice, they have inlet latches. Those latches are designed so that you can pull that lower section of the window in and clean it by hand. You are never to spray your windows, even with just a regular garden hose. Because you spray those windows, you can knock that seal out. Once you've done that, that window has to be replaced.
Well, that's good to know. So hopefully y'all can play that back when you're looking at these windows. All right, so Eric and Nicole.
All right, wow. That's something new that I don't even think I'm aware of that. It's not something that I got to cover, but I only have to cover that if it fails, and then we go through that negotiation process of asking for something to be replaced. So let's look for the next. Let's see if we got another question up here another section that's important to you guys. Maybe let me check it. All right, so this next question is going to be about. Look, you see it on the screen. Does USDA require a home inspection on new construction? All right, so that requirement is not a requirement. No mortgage company asks us for or requires a home inspection. But what they do look for is the termite. They want to make sure the house is termite free. So if you don't get a home inspection, at least get the termite inspection for sure. All right, so let this play.
All right, so Eric and Nicole had a question. I want to make sure we clarify this for everybody. There's no requirement for any mortgage for you to get a personal home inspection, okay? This is something that's your due diligence to make sure you're buying something that's in good condition. And I think a lot of people confuse this because USDA and government, they're like, as long as it's inhabitable, like it is, they call it safe and sanitary, meaning there's no broken windows, the plumbing works. They are testing for like the basics, right? They're not going deep into these inspections because they're bringing like FHA appraisal. They'll make sure it's safe and sanitary. They do not do a full inspection on that home. And no lender is going to require you to do an inspection, a home inspection, okay? So this is your responsibility as a first-time home buyer to make sure that you get your own inspection. Do not be confused between an appraisal and an inspection. They are two totally different things. It does not work where I'll just get the appraisal and they'll look at the house. Literally, I was like at an inspection. I sat outside. They came in. They walked around the house once as the FHA appraiser. Walked around the house once, flushed the toilet, ran the water, and left. They stayed in that house all of 15 minutes. Okay. A home inspector is going to stay in your home for like hours, at least 2 hours, depending on the size. They're staying in that home and testing everything. So do not, we say this about 3 times, do not confuse an appraisal, a government appraisal with a home inspection. 2 separate things. Save money. And I say save money for at least 2 home inspections. If you only save money for one home inspection, you're assuming the house you're gonna get is going to be perfect, right? And you're gonna close on it. That doesn't always happen. You may get something where it's a deal breaker for you and you say, I want to terminate, you still have to have money for another inspection. For some of my first time home buyers, it kind of hurt, like they gotta come out with another 350, another 400. But I told them, hey, save up two to begin with the anticipation that you might have to do a second one. Because if we terminate, you're still looking for a house and you gotta get another inspection. Okay, do you have anything to say about, you know, the lender inspection?
Yeah, their job is very, very different from ours. They're coming in there to make sure that everything that is listed and everything that is supposed to be there is there. That things look solid, that things look good, that water's running, things like that. That all of that the rooms are bedrooms, and that if something isn't listed as a bedroom, it's not. They're just making sure, and then they're going to go and do comps and all of that. They're there to see if the house is, you know, worth what it's being sold for. That's not as far as that goes. That's a completely different side, because we don't deal in the worth of the home whatsoever. So that is a very different thing for us. And you know, you don't want to just rely on the appraisal, because, you know, especially like during the pandemic, I saw they weren't required to get out of the car.
Right. They can do all of them, like they can drive past, take one picture from the car, and be done.
So, you know, you really want to be, I'll say, you know, the only thing that comes close to us is a VA appraisal, because they are just, they're tough.
They do it. All right, let's try to get through as many questions. We almost up at 7 o'clock, so I'm going through them. Somebody's saying like multifamily or townhomes or thin walled. Is there anything they could look for to see if they have enough insulation without like spending the night in the house, I guess, to see if they can hear their neighbors?
If that is
All right, hold on. That's actually a funny question, but a true question. I understand it. Very difficult to answer, but let me see how he responds to this one.
something that you are worried about, yeah. Well, number one, if it's thin walls like that, one worry would be that there's not a proper firewall. Because a proper firewall in between units would alleviate some of that sound. Some older townhomes and condo units like that, firewalls were required at the time they were built. And it could be that code inspection hasn't come through there in enough time for them to have come in and said, hey, y'all need to put up a firewall. So it could be more than just a sound issue. It could be a safety issue as far as that goes. So you definitely want to find out if there's a firewall there. And if there is, then, you know, that is one of the things of, you know, living in a townhome or condo sometimes, because it's not a requirement that you get sound diffusion. That is, you know, you got somebody right next to you, you might hear sometimes.
Right?
All right, so that's a good response. Very good response. And I'll explain when that happened with me. My clients were looking to buy a townhome, and they were worried about the sound from the neighbor. And where it came from was the model home was next to a home that a guy was already living in, and he was playing loud music that day. So I understand it. I understand that fully. That's something to consider when you're buying a townhome. And sometimes it might be better for you to get one that's on the end, because then you're only dealing with one neighbor versus two. So, you know, that's a preference thing.
Here, all right, another question. Would you note an HVAC system that uses R22 Freon? So for those of you that don't know, they're doing like a whole change of like old Freon. I guess it's like the EPA or something. It's saying they can't use certain things anymore. So like even in my own house, we had to replace our furnace, and they were like, well, do you want the new one, the old one? And I'm like, okay, one was like, you know, $15,000. The other one was like $3,000. So I'm gonna put the $3,000, but I know in my mind that the next, you know, when that goes bad, I have to go to the new one. So do you note that on your inspection, or do inspectors note that?
Yes, we do note the R22 Freon. Typically, and we will still put it in a major concern, but typically when I note it, I will recommend that they contact the nearest HVAC tech to see, because what it is, it's not really, it wasn't recalled, it was just discontinued. And so it's basically difficult to find. Now you can find it, you can go online and buy it, there's different places to find it, but not every HVAC tech company is really keeping up with that. and keeping it in-house. And so, you know, if you have trouble getting a hold of it, well, then when your Freon goes low, it's going to be warm. So, you know, my suggestion is always before closing, make sure.
All right, I'm just gonna cut it there, but like that's a difficult one because like a lot of the HVAC companies in our area, they will say it's not in compliant anymore because they did change the code in a sense. So you have to upgrade to a newer system. All right, so I'm gonna skip that last part and we'll go to the next part. All right, so I'm gonna resume it.
That company is really keeping up with that and keeping it in-house. And so, you know, if you have trouble getting a hold of it, well, then when your Freon goes low, it's going to be warm. So, you know, my suggestion is always before closing, make sure that you contacted an HVAC company that's going to be able to service this unit, because you can't find one. And if the homeowner can't find one, well, then that's where you start talking about replacing the unit.
Okay, good answer. Okay, what happens? Okay, and this happened to me. We're talking about wildlife in the attic. Like, do you point that out? Now, I don't remember my inspector. This is before I knew Jamal. This is 6 years ago. I don't remember my inspector checking for wildlife. But now, like on my inspections now, I do see like there's, you know, droppings. Like they may not see actively the wildlife because the wildlife comes out at night, you guys. It wasn't until
All right. So I'm gonna talk about that topic, right? So an inspection was done on a house for one of my clients. And in the inspection report, it was no sighting of any droppings, no sign of any raccoon or mice or anything. And about a year later, the client had mentioned something about it. And this is where it got tough. It got really tough because if it was like a month after their house was purchased, I might have been able to do something, but I can't really do anything because I'm not the actual client. I'm the realtor. Now I recommended this company, but I recommended a few. So he reached out to the company and then they, you know, they said they wasn't going to compensate him for anything. And you know, I kind of got both sides. He said he was going to sue and then he was going to sue me for being on the hook. And I was like, I don't really know what that means because I didn't get paid from anything from recommending you. It was a recommendation. Like I recommended all the other companies. I don't get no kickback for anything like that. I select and recommend certain companies because I'm familiar with their process and I'm familiar with their inspectors, and it helps me do my job. And that's the only reason. But let's get finished this one because this one is always an interesting topic.
we moved in this house and we're sleeping. It's like wintertime. We hear like like squirrels were in our attic. So do you ever tell people that there possibly can be like wildlife in their attic?
Yes, anytime we see any evidence, a lot of times.
Now notice what he said. If they see any evidence, it wasn't no evidence. But it doesn't mean that in the future a squirrel can't get in there. Like it doesn't mean that. So that's always a touchy topic, but you got to read the agreement that you signed when you hired an inspection company. They have things in there that protects them. So, you know, the system is not perfect. It's surely not perfect.
In attics, you know, birds and squirrels, a lot of times, they don't always necessarily nest in your attic. They come in there to get warm or come in there to grab something or do something. They go running around. It's just an area for them to occupy for a little while. The thing that you're typically going to see when you got a lot of like droppings and things like that in your attic is tree rats and raccoons, or bats. Bats are out in the country. You get bats a lot. And so you'll get that up there. And anytime we see evidence of that, we're going to recommend that pest technician come in and first and foremost, figure out how they got in, seal that up, and then try to trap them as best they can and begin to get rid of them. It's definitely something that you want to be aware of because rodent droppings can be hazardous. Not the type of stuff you want to just be breathing in. It's not good for you. So you definitely want to keep an eye on that. Another way to stop that stuff from happening, one, and you don't just get pest technicians to come to your house when you start seeing the problem. That's something that you can always do beforehand. Hire a pest technician company when you first buy the home to take care of the home and be on the lookout for those things.
All right. So when he says that, right, I recommend to everybody to do that. I just sold a house not too long ago, and I told the client, like, you might want to get a termite treatment, spray for any pest or like rodents or anything like a squirrel. And I recommended the company that I know they do a good job. And that way she could actually get that done. And she ordered it. So let me get finished playing this.
Another thing you should do, we always tell people, because like hearing this, all people love trees that create shade. Those trees hanging over the top of your roof is how those things get in there. And so you always, even if you love your trees, trim them back away from your house. If you were looking down at your house from the sky, you should have about 10 feet in every direction around your house that's clear. Because if you have a tree limb hanging over the top of your house, anything can get it.
Okay, very good, very good. And you got in this.
All right, now that right there, even when we're looking at the house from the first day, I'm talking about that, right? The trees. And I'll say generally, like, during the inspection, they will ask for those trees to be trimmed back. If you got too many trees, you might want to get them trimmed, because you got insurance, but you just don't want a tree to fall on your house. That could be disastrous. Like it has happened to a friend of mine, and it has happened to a person that I met. So let's look for the next question. Also, before I go on, any of you guys that's viewing this video, you can put questions down the bottom. I'm gonna answer them. Knowledge is power. Having an understanding about something is very, very important. So let me just click on this and go to the next one.
Are we able to be present for the home inspections? Let's talk about, she's talking about new construction, but let's talk about new construction and resale. I'll tell you what I tell my clients. I say, let the home inspector work, because sometimes I used to tell my clients, yes, you can go at the same time as the home inspector. They'll be there at 10. They'll probably be done by 12:30 or whatever. But then you have like a buyer like, oh, what's that? And what's that? And what's and
all right, now I'm gonna say something different. Because generally, like, my inspectors, they work a little differently. But what I tell my clients is this: it's okay to attend. I mean, this is what you're paying for. They'll ask, am I gonna attend? I'm like, well, I will stop by, right? I may not have to be there at the very beginning, or if you want me to be there at the very beginning, I will come for the very beginning. But I'll set the tone from the very beginning. I'll be like, look, the inspector is going to start off by going over some things before they get started. They're going to say it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to have a pen, pad. It's okay to review, have the inspector do something on a video for you, because they might make some recommendations and tell you how to handle some things. But don't hold your questions in, because you want to get them answered then. So this way you receive a good experience. All right.
And then the home inspector can't do their job. So what I tell them now is, or I tell the home inspector ahead of time, when's a good time for us to get an overview of the report? Like, when will you be about finished? Because that'll allow me to get some eyes on any of the problems, so we can actually see what you're talking about before we get the report. Okay. So that's what I usually suggest. I ask the inspector, like, about what time do you think you'll be done? I tell my client, or I'll come and we'll, meet there, and they'll do like an overview of like the major things that they found in the house. But what do you suggest? And the new construction, they can't tell you that you cannot be there. They tried to do that during the pandemic. Oh, we can't have all these people in the house, all that kind of stuff. But you should be able to be present during your home inspection, even for new construction. What do you say, Jamal?
Yeah, I recommend that you be there. Typically, I try to let people know, if I have a 10 a.m. inspection, I let people know, it typically is going to take me about 2 to 2.5 hours, depending on the size of the house. It may take longer, and I try to give them a time that I anticipate beginning to wind down. that they can come, because I know people still want to come there and start walking around and looking at stuff. So, you know, I typically about 45 minutes to an hour before I know that I'm going to be finishing up, I tell them that they can show up around that time. And that gives me a chance to have knocked out some of the larger systems and some of the more intense things that I have to do before they come in. Because, you know, I don't mind answering people's questions and stuff like that. It's stuff, a lot of times it's things that people need to know. The thing you have to understand is that, you know, while we're working, we work. Every inspector has a direction and a way that they work, and it's the same thing every single time. So just because you say, what about this? He comes over there and looks at it and says, okay. Most times when people say that to me, I say, yeah, I see that. And I walk off because you just stopped me from looking at something else, and I can't break my system, because if I break my system, then I'll miss something. So I understand that you have your question. A lot of times it is better to hold till the end, and then we can walk around all over the place and look at the stuff that you saw. But you want your inspector to be able to stay to his system and move all around the house the way that he does, because we have a very specific system that each inspector has for themselves. And when that gets broken, it's very easy for us to be like, what was I doing? And then go on to something else, and now I missed something. So that's really good. As far as new construction goes, yeah, you're allowed to be there. Different companies like to come up with different little weird things and say that this one can't be there and that one can't be there and only this and this and that. You are still allowed to be at the inspection. I always tell people, don't let them tell you something that doesn't make any sense.
That's a good one to follow. Okay. So I'm about to say Magic Mike. Michael Mike said, never get a home inspector from the real estate agent. Never. I would say no to this never.
What?
However, I would say don't just get one, right? Because you're number one, the agent has a lot of liability because they only gave you one person, right? And then you know, there could be a conflict of interest because like some agents.
I agree 100%. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get finished playing this, but I'm gonna show you guys something.
They're like, I need this closing, right? And don't, you know, you never know like what's going on behind the scenes. And I think this is what he may be referring to, that these agents, you know, when they only give you one, you should worry. But when I give my list, there's some national companies, there's Jamal, there's this, and a lot of times it's by price. Like I want to make sure there's an affordable option on there. There's some expensive options on there. So I would say the inspection list should be at the minimum 3 to 4. I have like 6 on mine. So my answer to, well, he didn't ask a question. I just wanted to address it. It's not never, right? But they.
All right, now I don't agree with the never, right? Also, because like we're the individual that's the most knowledgeable in this situation. But let me show you something. All right, so as you see, this is the email that I send out pretty much to clients, right? So I got a Merit Spec, I got Pro Home Spec Inspection, I got a Pro Spec Home Inspection Service, right? So I got A Pro right here. I could add a couple more, which I might do. I might add a 4th one on. But I'm trying to add companies that I know can do a very good job, and the price is affordable. Because we have to take that in consideration too, because sometimes you can get a home inspection and then the deal falls apart at that level. So, you know, you don't get your money back for the deal falling apart.
Only giving you you use this inspector, then that is a red flag for you as a first-time home buyer. They should be giving you a list of inspectors that you could choose from, and some of them should be national like companies that you could choose from as well. All right. Thank you guys. People are saying it's a very informative live. Somebody said, excuse me, tree rats. Hi, Bernie. I'm asking you a question. Okay. Help. I bought a house 2 months ago. I'm telling y'all, these are the emails I get 2 months ago. And now all of a sudden, I see a crack in the wall, which started on the top of the wall, and now it's close to the bottom in a zigzag pattern. What should I do?
My suggestion there would be, I would definitely have a structural contractor come out. A lot of structural contractor firms, they'll have contractors who do the work. Instead of having the engineer come out, they'll send one of the contractors out first. You can look those up online, Google structural contracting firm and stuff like that. And they'll send out a structural contractor, and a lot of times that won't cost you a ton of money. To have that contractor come out there and take a look at it. If that structural contractor takes a look at that and deems that, yeah, this does look like an issue, then they'll bring in the big gun of the structural engineer to take a look at things. Because if it's moving that aggressively, you know what I'm saying? A lot of times when you see an aggressive crack like that, it could be some type of issue. I'm not sure of all the things that are going on with your home, but you never want to see cracking happening that quickly. So definitely I would say call a structural contractor. If you have an engineer that you know, have them come by and take a look at it, because you definitely don't want cracking to be happening that quickly.
Okay, it doesn't matter how wide it is, or it's like a hairline crack, or somebody told me in some cracks, if you put a quarter in it, it's too big or something. Like, it doesn't matter how thick the crack is.
Well, we look in a lot of different, like I would say my thing would be, if I were looking at it, I would begin looking in a lot of different areas for other signs of cracking. More than likely, if there's an issue, that's not the only place there's a crack. I would say start looking over your door frames, step back and look at your door frames around your window sills and trims. Start looking for cracks there. Take a step back and look and see if you see any sagging in your windows and doors above the framing. Start looking in all the corners of the rooms around the house. You'll oftentimes start to see some cracks there, and they will sometimes look like a hairline crack. But if you're seeing enough of them, they begin to add up to a bigger issue. So I would say start looking around, and if you can get in touch with it, if it's really bothering you, then definitely get in touch with a structural contractor and have them come and take a look at it, because you definitely want to get to it before it becomes an issue.
Okay, also, this is what I learned, and the only reason why I know it is family members in my family were into construction. Like, they built homes for builders. And when the problem is really severe, and if you got hardwood floors or some kind of laminate floors or tile floors, you may see that the floor doesn't look level. So what you could do is take a tennis ball and just set it there and see if it rolls. If it rolls, then that means that house and the foundation most likely is shifting. So then you want to, of course, get that checked out.
Okay. That is very, 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 very good. I just want to remind you guys, because I ended on that.
All right. So that's the end of this video, but I just wanted to share that with you guys. I can go over step by step. I might make a video step by step, the process. Like, I'm gonna show you a contract, an actual home inspection sample. So give me 1 second, and I'm gonna bring this up on the screen. All right, so I brought up a company, and this is not a company I've used them in the past with a couple other clients. But what I want to show you is the basic. This is one example of a home inspection report. It'll tell you who the inspector is, the date, address of the company, date and inspector, front view, so they show pictures. Okay, let me get back into the frame here. They show pictures, and I actually know this house, know where this house is located. So anything that's a major defects, what they do is they open the door for a response from the buyer asking the seller to fix a repair. Now, it doesn't guarantee that they're going to agree, but it starts a form of communication and a process. So here you go. Porch area. They show you pictures. That area needs to be addressed. Evidence of ongoing leaking was noted, right? So they're asking, it should be evaluated. And when they say evaluated, I normally say by a licensed contractor, and repair. As you see, is another view right there. Made other notations right here. And they made more rotted fixed at the bottom, right? So that door needs to be addressed. All right. Exterior garage. All this is major defects. In the process, the major and the safety defects can be negotiated. Sometimes it's just for people awareness, and they're not going to ask for anything from the seller, but they're going to fix it themselves. And that's up to each and every client. It the process doesn't work the same all the time. All right. So that's just an example of major. I'm looking for something that's like a safety defect. Because every company, their reports can be set up differently. This is just an example. All right, and I'll talk to you about safety defects. Safety defects is like, here we go. Walkways, missing mortar found. So, somebody could trip, somebody could twist their ankle, somebody could break their ankle, on something like that. There go another one. Tripping hazard and stuff like that, right? If you notice, like the bricks, the steps, the walkways, could be an issue. That right there is an issue with the electrical line. All right, that's definitely an issue because anything with an open junction box, that can be a hazard and it can really cause problems. That right there. I've seen a lot of this stuff in the years. That right there, especially, we see that a lot. Oh yeah, we see that one a lot too. What's this one? That's a concern because the wood is rotten. This right here should have a rail. Like I can like rattle this off all day long. What's this one? Oh, mold, mildew. Know at the lower. Should it be cleaned by qualified personnel? Yeah, mold is dangerous, right? Could be a major defect on somebody else's report. And then they talk about, repairs. So, and this right here, the common eye, the reason why we can't see it, because I'm not an inspector. Maybe if I went to school for inspection and went through the process of doing, I forgot how many hours you got to do of inspections, until you can, fully be qualified. But that's the example right there, that one. Let me show you another one, sample of a new construction one. Just to have you, I just want you guys to be more knowledgeable about this process. That's a nice house. All right, now I want you to take note. Now look at this. This is a brand new house, right? And this is my example. See how it says missing caulking in the joints? It's small stuff, right? But that stuff really means something. It's considered a major defect. Look at right there. Major defect, right? Right here, right here, right here, right here. Like, and this is typical. We've seen this. Overhead doors installed. Overhead doors not installed at the time of inspection, right? That can happen because the builder could be running behind, or the doors may not even be available at that time. All right, now look at this. Cracked glass. I've had that happen with clients. New construction worker was working and hit the window, it caused a crack in it. Basement ceiling joist visible, prime type, missing hanger. Like you see how this is what is missing. So I'm supposed to have one of those there, and it's not there, right? See that safety concern, right? So it points out the different things. And look, the money that you pay for it, like I'm always impressed because I'm touring the house like you're touring the house, and we're not looking at the house like the way the inspectors look at the house in the inspection process. So just look at that. Just look at that. All right, so hopefully you understand that new construction is no different than any other house, and it's wise to get it inspected. See, look at that, missing section was noted, should be repaired. And see, these things don't look like nothing to you, but look, this is an example of like where builders can make mistakes. All right, so some scuffling is loose, right? Nail heads should be sealed. Nail holes were noted at the roof edges and should be repaired. Debris should be removed from the roof. That right there. And here's where you can see. And look, this stuff looks very, very small, right? But they know exactly what they're looking at, right? Like, look at that. And that's on new construction. And this can happen for any builder, every builder. Oh, look at that right there. That's a good one. You know, I love what I do, right? And I love the process because I've been doing it so long, and it's really seamless to follow this process. But just wanted to show you guys this. All right, I'm not going to hold you and go through each one. I just want you guys to know the importance of having a home inspection. And if you have any questions, shoot them at the bottom. Text me, send me messages, and I'll be happy to go through and answer them. Just want you guys to be knowledgeable and get through this process safely. All right. So I'm not going to keep going through all these. I'm just so interested in like how many things came up on this report. You know, it's interesting because each time I go through this process, it's different. Because it's different owners, it's different builders, it's different people involved in the process. All right. But reach out to me. The number is 302-285-9604. My website will be at the bottom, and I'll send you the address to send an email to. So hopefully this video was very valuable to you and you got some kind of use out of it, because I thought, and I want to commend Shahida. She does very good videos. I kind of do similar videos, and some of the videos I haven't even posted yet. But I'm gonna try to do a better job to get all that information out for you guys. All right. So take care. I love you, and hopefully you like, you share, you do all these things with this video. Take care.